We spend our entire lives building a fortress. We call it identity. It's this massive, sprawling archive of every birthday party, every heartbreak, every smell of rain on hot asphalt, every ambition we've ever held. We view the self as this ethereal pilot driving the meat suit, something distinctly, separate from the biology.
We tell ourselves stories about the human soul, the indomitable spirit. We think the ghost inside the machine is fireproof.
It's a comforting illusion, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's the ghost in the machine fallacy. It makes us feel permanent. It makes us feel like we matter in a way that, well, that transcends matter itself.
Exactly. It's the lie that lets us sleep at night. But the mission of this specific deep dive is to strip that comfort away. Because the terrifying, wet, biological reality is that you, me, and everyone listening.
We're just a chemical equation.
A very precarious one. We are a house of cards held together by enzymes and electrical gradients, and here's the provocation. I can delete you.
Delete is the right word, not kill, delete.
I can take that entire narrative arc, your childhood memories, your love for your spouse, your understanding of who you are right now, and I can incinerate it.
And you don't need a bullet.
I don't need a bullet. I don't need a lobotomy. All I need to do is remove a single microscopic molecule from your diet.
One molecule. You pull that one brick out of the metabolic wall, and the whole cathedral of the self comes crashing down.
Today, we are staring into the abyss of Wernicke-Korsakoff Syndrome.
Which is a clinical term that, frankly, most people gloss over. It sounds complicated, a bit dry.
But they know the street name, though.
Oh, yeah? Wet brain.
Wet brain.
Right. And it's a slur. It's dismissive. It sounds gross, like a sponge left in the sink too long. It evokes this image of a bum stumbling around under a bridge.
It does. It has all this baggage attached.
But that phrase is insultingly inadequate. I mean, it doesn't even begin to cover the actual body horror that is happening inside the skull.
I think when our listeners hear alcohol-related brain damage, they picture like Uncle Bob, who drank too much whiskey and is now a bit slow, or maybe he tells the same story twice at Thanksgiving.
Exactly. They equate it with permanent drunkenness or a mild cognitive decline. But that is not what we are dealing with today. We are not talking about getting forgetful. We're talking about a specific catastrophic metabolic collapse.
This is something else entirely.
We are talking about the brain literally eating itself to stay alive.
It is essentially a suicide pact between your metabolism and your neurology.
That's a perfect way to put it. Wernicke-Korsakoff is a two-part beast. You have the acute phase, Wernicke's encephalopathy, where your brain is effectively on fire with inflammation.
The crash.
The crash. And then if you survive that, you hit the chronic phase, Korsakoff syndrome, and that's where the fire burns out and leaves. Well, it leaves nothing. A hollowed-out shell. It is the architecture of amnesia.
So here is the roadmap for this deep dive. We are looking at the intersection of addiction, neurology, and existential dread. And I want to put a warning label on this right up front. This is going to get visceral. We're going to talk about body horror. We're going to talk about end-stage alcoholism in all its graphic, messy reality, the fluids, the blood, the decay.
And we're going to talk about the philosophical nightmare of being stuck in a permanent now, where the past is dead and the future never arrives.
It's a heavy one, but it's necessary. Because understanding this mechanism helps us understand just how fragile the software of the human mind really is.
It really is.
So let's get the chemistry on the table. Because this whole nightmare, this entire ontological collapse, starts with a spark plug.
That's the best analogy. The spark plug is thiamine. Vitamin B1.
Which sounds so pedestrian. It's in your cereal, it's in your pork chop, it's in your sunflower seeds. It's a vitamin. We don't think of vitamins as like life or death switches.
No, we think of them as things you take to have shiny hair or better skin. But you have to think about the brain's energy demands. The brain is a greedy, greedy organ. It's only about 2% of your body weight, but it consumes roughly 20% of your total oxygen and glucose. It runs hot. It's a high-performance engine.
And the fuel for that engine is glucose, sugar.
Correct. But here is the catch. You can have a tank full of gas, you can be swimming in glucose, but if the spark plug is dead, the car doesn't move. Thiamine is the gatekeeper.
The key that turns the ignition.
Biologically speaking, it's the cofactor for the enzymes that run the Krebs cycle.
The citric acid cycle, the furnace. I remember that from high school biology.
The very same furnace. Specifically, the active form, thiamine pyrophosphate, or TPP, is required for enzymes like transketolase, pyruvate dehydrogenase, and alpha-ketoglutarate dehydrogenase. Now, these are just big words, but think of them as foremen on an assembly line.
Okay.
Their job is to take the breakdown products of sugar and shove them into the mitochondria to make ATP, to make energy.
So let's play this out. If I strip the thiamine out of your system, those foremen, they just stop working. The assembly line halts.
It halts, but this is the critical misunderstanding. The engine doesn't just stall, it melts down. See, when you run out of thiamine, the cells are screaming for energy. They are bathed in glucose, but they can't unlock it. They are starving at a banquet.
It's Cantilus. The water is right there up to his chin, but he can't drink.
It's exactly that myth. And because the cells can't run the clean energy cycle, the aerobic cycle, they switch to dirty energy, anaerobic metabolism. And you get a massive buildup of lactate, lactic acid.
The same stuff that makes your muscles burn after a hard workout.
Precisely. But instead of being in your quads, it's marinating your brain. It's lowering the pH, creating a toxic environment. But it gets worse.
Of course it does.
The stalled metabolic pathways start spitting out these things called reactive oxygen species.
Free radicals.
Biological shrapnel. These free radicals start tearing up the cellular machinery, they shred the cell walls, they destroy the DNA, and on top of that, you get something called excitotoxicity.
Which is as bad as it sounds.
It's basically the neurons getting overexcited by the neurotransmitter glutamate and burning themselves out. They vibrate until they explode. It's a chain reaction of cellular death.
So it's not a quiet shutdown. It is a metabolic fire.
It is metabolic incineration. The cells effectively suffocate and die. And this doesn't happen everywhere at once. It targets specific high-maintenance areas of the brain, the mammillary bodies, the thalamus, the periaqueductal gray matter.
Why they?
Because they are high metabolic regions. They're like the CPUs of the brain, always running hot. They're the control centers for memory and sensory integration, and they are the first to burn.
Okay, so we understand the mechanism of the fire. Lack of B1 equals cell death. But I mean, obviously you can get thiamine deficiency from starvation. We saw this in prisoners of war. We see it in severe anorexia.
Or do.
But the wet brain phenomenon is so inextricably linked to alcohol. Why is alcohol the specific accelerant for this particular fire?
Because alcohol doesn't just, passively allow B1 to disappear. Alcohol actively hunts it down. It wages a multi-front war on thiamine. It's what I call a synergistic fuck-up.
I don't think that's in the DSM-5, but it should be.
It really should. Alcohol attacks your thiamine status from 3 different directions simultaneously. It is a triple threat.
Okay, walk us through the 3 prongs of the attack. What's number 1?
Prong 1 is the most obvious. It's simple displacement. This is the lifestyle factor. If you are a severe end-stage alcoholic, you are not eating a balanced diet. You are not sitting down to kale salads and pork chops.
You're drinking your dinner.
You're drinking your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You might be consuming 2,000–3,000 calories of ethanol a day. And ethanol has 0 vitamins. It is empty fuel. So you are starving yourself of nutrients while remaining calorically full. You simply aren't putting any B1 into the intake valve.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's just the start. Because even if you did eat a steak.
Right. And this is prong 2, malabsorption. Alcohol is a solvent. We forget that. It's an industrial solvent we happen to enjoy drinking. It inflames the lining of the stomach and the intestines, the gastric mucosa.
Okay.
Now, usually your body has these special doorways, these active transport mechanisms to pull thiamine out of your food and into your blood. Specifically, they're called thiamine transporters, THTR1 and THTR2.
And alcohol messes with the doors.
It blows them off their hinges, it downregulates them, it physically inhibits the gene expression for these transporters. So even if you popped a multivitamin, it might just slide right through your GI tract without ever being absorbed. You lose the ability to actively grab the molecule.
So you're starving, and even if food is there, your gut is paralyzed. That's 2. What's the 3rd prong?
And then prong 3, hepatic dysfunction, the liver. The liver is the body's chemical plant. It's the storage locker. It stores thiamine, and more importantly, it's where thiamine gets converted into that active form we talked about, thiamine pyrophosphate. It adds the phosphate groups.
But an alcoholic, the liver is scar tissue.
It's cirrhotic, it's fibrous, it's useless. It can't store the vitamin, and it can't activate the vitamin. So you have this perfect storm. You aren't eating it, you can't absorb what you do eat, and you can't use what little you might have absorbed.
It's a complete siege. There's no way for the B1 to get in or get used.
No way.
And this leads us to one of the most cruel traps in biochemistry, the magnesium trap. I was reading about this, and it just struck me as the ultimate biological gotcha.
It is devastating. It's the reason why some patients die after they get to the hospital, even when they're getting what seems like the right treatment.
Explain that.
Yeah.
Because logic says, patient lacks B1, you give the patient B1, the patient gets better. It seems simple.
Biology is rarely that linear. Remember those enzymes? Transketolase. the foreman on the assembly line. To work, they don't just need thiamine, they need a helper. They need another cofactor to bind the thiamine to the enzyme, to hold it in place so it can do its job.
Like a piece of tape or...
The glue. That cofactor is magnesium. But chronic alcohol use acts as a potent diuretic. It makes you urinate constantly, and it specifically causes you to waste electrolytes. You piss away all your magnesium, the body has no reserves.
So picture the scene. A patient comes into the ER. They are delirious, stumbling, confused. Clearly it's Wernicke's. The resident, maybe they're smart, they know the protocol. They hang a bag of 5-E thiamine.
And nothing happens. Or worse, they get worse.
Why worse?
Because if you give glucose before thiamine, you can actually precipitate the crisis. You're providing fuel for a fire you haven't given the spark plugs for, burning up the last few molecules of B1. But even with just the thiamine without the magnesium, that thiamine just floats around uselessly in the blood. It can't click into the enzyme.
It's like having a key but no hand to turn it.
Exactly. The brain continues to starve, the metabolic fire continues to burn, even while the cure is circulating in their veins.
That is fucking terrifying. It's like trying to put out a fire, but your water hose is disconnected at the spigot, and you don't even realize it because you see the water flowing on the ground.
And while you're fiddling with the hose, the house burns down. You have to replace the magnesium before or during the thiamine repletion. It's called a banana bag in the ER with all the vitamins and electrolytes. If you miss that step, the patient stays broken.
And broken in this context means they cross the threshold into the acute phase. Wernicke's encephalopathy. This isn't a slow decline anymore. This is the crash.
This is called the code.
Yeah.
This is a medical emergency with a 20% mortality rate. 1 in 5 people just die right here from the metabolic shock and the brainstem failure.
And the ones who don't die, what happens to them?
If they don't get treatment fast enough, or if the doctor misses the magnesium, or if they're just too far gone, they cross a bridge. And there's no walking back across that bridge. They go from sick to permanently altered.
So let's put the listener in that ER room. How do doctors even spot this? I know there's this mnemonic every med student learns, the Classic Triad.
The Classic Triad. It's almost mythical at this point. The textbooks say you look for 3 things: confusion or encephalopathy, ophthalmoplegia, which is a fancy word for eye movement abnormalities, and ataxia, which means problems with walking and balance.
Confusion, crazy eyes, and the walk.
Right. And if medicine were simple, every patient would come in with a neat little checklist of all 3. But the reality is that the Classic Triad is a dangerous oversimplification. Studies show that only a tiny fraction of patients, maybe 15 to 30%, actually present with the full triad.
That's a massive margin for error.
It's huge. Most people might just be confused. Or they might just be stumbling. And now think about the patient profile. A chronic alcoholic comes into the ER at 2 in the morning. They are confused, maybe a bit aggressive, and they are stumbling. What does the triage nurse think?
They think he's drunk. Just another drunk.
Exactly. They think, it's Friday night, here comes regular John, let him sleep it off. They attribute the confusion to intoxication, not brain damage. They attribute the stumbling to being wasted, not to cerebellar degeneration.
And while he's sleeping it off in the hallway on a gurney.
His cerebellum is liquefying. Every hour that passes without that intravenous thiamine push is more neurons dying. It is a tragedy of stigma masking a clear and treatable pathology.
I want to drill down into the symptoms themselves, because ataxia is a nice, sterile, clinical word, but the description of what it actually looks like is haunting. It's not just stumbling drunk, is it?
No, it's very different. Drunk stumbling can be erratic. This is specific. It's the lost mariner walk. The cerebellum controls your balance, your coordination, your sense of where you are in space. When it starts to die, specifically a part called the cerebellar vermis, you lose your anchor to the earth.
If you describe it, what would I see?
Patients develop this incredibly wide-based stance, feet way apart, like they're trying to form a tripod just to stay upright. They take tiny, shuffling steps. They look like they are trying to walk on ice or on the heaving deck of a ship in a storm.
Wow.
They are gripping the walls, the furniture, anything, because the world is spinning and their internal gyroscope is broken. You ask them to walk a straight line, heel to toe. Impossible. It's a distinct, terrifying loss of motor control.
And the eyes. The ocular horror sounds like something out of a Cronenberg film.
It is deeply unsettling to look at. First, you see nystagmus. The eyes start vibrating back and forth, either horizontally or vertically. It's not a twitch. It's a constant, rapid oscillation.
Like a camera failing to autofocus.
But violent. It's involuntary. The brainstem nuclei that control eye position are misfiring. They're short-circuiting. And then you can get ophthalmoplegia.
Which is paralysis.
Paralysis. The muscles that move the eyes just stop working, so you ask the patient to look to the left, and they can't. Their eyes are frozen in their head, or they drift apart into a strabismus being cross-eyed or wall-eyed. It gives them this frantic yet frozen look. It is a 5-alarm fire sign that the brainstem, the most primal, essential part of the brain, is taking heavy damage.
So we have a patient who is confused, has vibrating eyes, is walking like a sailor on a sinking ship. If they get the IV thiamine right now, high dose, immediately, with magnesium, do they come back?
Yes. And this is the absolute tragedy of it all. It is reversible in this acute phase. The eyes can fix themselves in hours. It's almost miraculous to witness. The confusion clears up in days. The ataxia, the walking, that takes longer, but it can improve.
But if you miss it?
If you miss it, if you wait just a day or two too long, the acute inflammation settles down, the fire goes out, and you're left with the ashes.
And that is section 3, crossing the mode into Korsakoff syndrome.
The architecture of amnesia.
So the patient survives the crash. They aren't delirious anymore. They wake up, they seem...
Okay. On the surface, yes. Their IQ is usually intact. They can speak fluently. They can be witty. They can play chess or do a crossword puzzle. But they have been hollowed out. The structures in the brain, specifically the mammillary bodies and the thalamus, are shrunken. They are scarred. An MRI would show atrophy.
It's interesting you mentioned the mammillary bodies. They're tiny, right? Like pea-sized.
Tiny. Little pea-sized lumps on the underside of the brain. You could easily miss them. But they are a critical junction box in what's called the PAPES circuit.
The memory highway.
The memory highway. It's the route that information takes to get from right now, from short-term memory into long-term storage. When those bridges burn, you get profound anterograde amnesia.
The inability to form new memories.
The tape recorder is broken, it's recording, but the right head is snapped off. Nothing gets saged.
Give us a scenario. What does this actually look like in a room with a patient?
It's chilling. It's one of the most uncanny experiences you can have. You walk in as a doctor, you introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Dr. Smith. How are you today? You sit down, you have a 10-minute conversation. The patient is engaging, maybe tells a joke. They seem totally normal.
Okay.
Then you say, excuse me, I just need to check a chart. You walk out the door, you wait 60 seconds, not 5 minutes, 60 seconds, you walk back in. And the patient looks at you, smiles warmly, and says, hi, nice to meet you. Who are you?
Absolute zero. No flicker of recognition.
Absolute zero. The last 10 minutes never happened. They didn't just fade. They were never written to the disc. You were greeting them for the first time every single time.
It's like that movie Memento, but without the tattoos and the revenge plot, just the emptiness.
But it's actually worse than Memento because that was just anterograde.
Yep.
With Korsakoff's, there's usually also retrograde amnesia.
Losing the past.
Losing the past. But it's not a total wipe like in the movies. It follows a temporal gradient, a rule. It works backward. You lose the memories of last year, then the year before, then the last decade.
So the most recent stuff goes first.
Exactly. But usually, childhood and early adulthood remain largely intact. Those memories are stored differently. They're more consolidated deep in the cortex.
So you end up stranded in time.
You are marooned. You might be a 60-year-old man, but in your mind, the last clear memory you have is from when you were 25. You think it is 1995. You think Clinton is president. You think your parents are still alive. You are young in your mind, but your body is old.
This brings us to the famous case study, Oliver Sacks, the lost mariner.
Jimmy G. This is the case that really brought the human horror of this to the public. Jimmy was 49 years old when Sacks met him in the 1970s. But Jimmy believed with absolute conviction that it was 1945.
The war had just ended.
For him, yes. He was a bright, charismatic former sailor. He could talk about the Navy. He knew the Morse code. He knew the slang from that era. He was perfectly preserved in that moment. But everything after that? A fog. A void.
And there's that one moment in the case notes, the mirror test.
Yes.
I think this is the emotional core of the entire disease.
It is devastating. Jimmy is talking about being 19, full of life. Sacks, trying to show him the reality of his situation, hands him a mirror. Now, just put yourself in that position. You expect to see a smooth-faced teenage kid. You look in the glass.
And staring back at you is a gray-haired, wrinkled, middle-aged man.
The visceral terror of that. It's not just confusion. It's seeing your own corpse. It's seeing a stranger, a monster wearing your face.
What did he do?
Sacks describes Jimmy gripping the chair, turning white, whispering, Christ, what is going on? What's happened to me? He was in absolute existential panic.
And then? What happens after that shock?
Sacks takes the mirror away. He distracts him for a minute, asks him about a baseball game from the 40s. And because of the anterograde amnesia, Jimmy forgets.
The panic just evaporates.
Completely gone. He forgets the reflection. He forgets the fear. He goes back to being 19 and happy, talking about his plans after the Navy.
God. Is that a blessing or a curse?
That is the philosophical question at the heart of it, isn't it? To be trapped in a delusion but protected from the horror of your own reality? It's a profound dilemma.
But the brain.
Yeah.
The brain hates a vacuum, doesn't it? It doesn't like having these empty spots where memories should be. And that leads to one of the weirdest symptoms of WKS, confabulation.
The honest lie?
I love that term, the honest lie. Because when we say confabulation, people think lying. But lying requires intent. You have to know the truth to be able to tell the lie.
Exactly. These patients aren't trying to deceive you. They're trying to make sense of the world. Their reality monitoring system, which we think lives in the frontal lobes, is broken. They have these gaps in their timeline, and the brain panics.
And it just fills it in.
It grabs a random fragment of a memory, maybe from a movie they saw, maybe from 20 years ago, and it pastes it over the blank spot in the present, like a bad Photoshop job.
But to them, it looks perfect.
Seamless. Totally seamless. They believe it with every fiber of their being.
So what are the types of bullshit we're dealing with here?
Well, you have the most common kind, provoked confabulations. These are the ones you get when you ask a direct question. You ask a patient, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Right.
Now, they have no idea. They didn't eat breakfast or they don't remember eating it. But the social pressure to answer is there. So their brain serves up a generic, plausible memory of breakfast from 1982.
I had eggs and bacon with my wife.
Even though his wife has been dead for 10 years, he sees the eggs, he sees his wife sitting across the table. He believes it.
And then there are the fantastic ones. These are the ones that feel more like hallucinations.
Spontaneous confabulations. These are wilder. A patient might tell you, with a completely straight face, I'm tired because I was on a secret submarine mission last night for the CIA. Or, I can't talk now, I just had lunch with the Queen of England and I have to prepare my report.
And they aren't joking. They're not being playful.
No, they are living it. And sometimes it becomes behavioral. They actually act on the confabulation. You'll see a patient in the hospital room meticulously packing their bags. You ask where they're going and they say, I'm late for my shift at the factory.
A factory they retired from 30 years ago.
Exactly. Or they'll try to leave to pick up their kids from a school that was torn down in the 90s.
It's heartbreaking. It's the brain frantically trying to build a bridge over the abyss using whatever scrap lumber it can find.
It's a survival mechanism. The patient cannot remember that they cannot remember. If they had to confront the void, the sheer nothingness of their memory every second of every day, they might go insane. So the brain fills the void with noise, with stories.
Now, we spent a lot of time inside the skull, but we need to zoom out because, as we said, WKS doesn't usually happen in a vacuum. It happens in the context of end-stage alcoholism.
Yeah.
And this is where the body horror really kicks into high gear.
Yeah. We need to be clear about this. This is not a graceful decline. We are not talking about slipping away peacefully in your sleep. We are talking about visceral structural collapse of the entire human body.
Let's start with the liver. We touched on it, but let's be graphic. The filter is broken. What does that actually look like?
It's called cirrhosis. The liver turns to stone. Literally, the healthy, spongy tissue is replaced by hard, knotty scar tissue, fibrosis. And when the liver fails, you get jaundice.
Which people think is just looking a bit tan.
No, this is not a healthy glow. This is Simpson yellow, highlighter yellow. The whites of your eyes, the sclera, turn neon because your blood is saturated with a toxic waste product called bilirubin. You are glowing with toxins.
The fluids. This is the part that always gets me. The ascites.
This is pure, brutal mechanics. The liver is scarred, so blood can't flow through it easily. The pressure backs up in the portal vein, like a dammed river. That's called portal hypertension.
Okay.
At the same time, the failing liver stops making a protein called albumin, which is the protein that keeps water inside your blood vessels. You have high pressure pushing out and low protein to hold it in. The water leaks out.
It leaves it into the belly.
It fills the peritoneal cavity. You see these men, 50 years old, with stick-thin arms and legs because their muscles have wasted away, but they look 9 months pregnant. Their bellies are distended, tight as a drum, full of liters and liters of this toxic yellow fluid.
They have to drain it right.
Paracentesis. They stick a large bore needle right through the abdominal wall and drain it like capping a keg. Gallons of amber fluid. And as soon as they drain it, it just starts to come back.
But the fluid buildup isn't the most dangerous part. It's the pressure in the veins, the esophageal varices.
This is the horror narrative. This is the ticking clock. The blood can't get through the liver, so it finds a detour. It forces its way through tiny, delicate veins in the lining of the throat, the esophagus.
Veins that aren't meant for that.
These veins are paper thin. They're meant to carry a trickle of blood, and now they are carrying a raging river under immense pressure. They balloon out. They become varices. They're like varicose veins, but lining your throat.
They're time bombs.
Exactly. You're sitting there. Maybe you cough. Maybe you swallow a piece of toast too hard. Maybe you just strain a little too much. Pop.
And
you vomit blood. Not a little bit. We are talking about a catastrophic bleed out. Bright red arterial blood. It looks like a scene from a slasher film. People can drown in their own blood before the ambulance can even get there. It is a violent, terrifying way to die.
And while all this is happening, the yellow skin, the swollen belly, the ticking time bomb in the throat, the rest of the body is failing too.
It's systemic. It's a total collapse. You get spider angiomas, these little red broken blood vessels all over the skin, especially the chest. In men, the testicles shrink, they atrophy, they develop breasts, a condition called gynecomastia.
Why?
Because the failing liver can't clear estrogen from the body anymore. So you have this hormonal imbalance, this feminization of the male body. And the immune system just gives up the ghost. You don't have the white blood cells to fight infection. A common cold turns into a fatal pneumonia and you just stop.
It's a total biological insult.
It is the body rotting while the person is still using it.
Which leads us to the people who have to watch this, the caregivers, the families. Because this is a blast radius. It doesn't just kill the addict, it maims everyone around them.
It's a psychological war zone. And it's so different from something like Alzheimer's.
Also,
with Alzheimer's, there is sympathy. It's a tragedy. It's a disease. People bring you casseroles. They form support groups. With wet brain, there is judgment. There's so much stigma. People look at the family and think, well, he did this to himself. He drank himself stupid. There is no sympathy casserole for the alcoholic.
and the patient themselves, they aren't exactly easy to care for.
That's the understatement of the year. Remember the frontal lobe damage, the lack of insight. There's a clinical term for it, anosognosia. The patient does not know they are sick. They think they are perfectly fine.
Which must be maddening.
It's impossible. You are trying to help them, trying to manage their money or their medications, and they fight you every step of the way. They think you're the enemy.
They think you're stealing from them.
Constantly. Where is my money? You took my wallet. They forgot they spent it. They forgot they lost it. But to them, in their broken logic, the only explanation for the missing wallet is that you, their child or their spouse, took it. So they get aggressive. They get paranoid. They can become abusive.
You are mourning the living.
Yes. That's the phrase caregivers use all the time. The person is there, they look like your dad, they sound like your dad. They might even play the piano just like your dad did. But the narrative continuity that made him your dad, the shared history, it's gone. You are caretaking a ghost that is still hungry and angry and confused.
And what about the ones who don't have family? Because I feel like WKS explains a lot of what we see on the streets.
It explains a massive amount of the chronic homelessness crisis. Just think about it logically. To maintain a home, you need executive function. You need to remember to pay rent on the first of the month. You need to remember to go to your job every day. You need to follow the rules of a lease.
If you reset every 5 minutes, you can't do any of that.
Exactly. You get evicted, you lose your job, you end up on the street, and people see you confused, maybe talking to people who aren't there because you're confabulating, stumbling because of the ataxia, and they label you crazy, or just another drug addict.
When really you have a brain injury.
You have a metabolic brain injury. Many of the so-called crazy homeless people you see screaming at traffic are actually undiagnosed Korsakoff patients. They are stuck in a memory loop, being punished by society for a medical condition. And the tragedy is their age.
They're young, relatively.
They are working age. They're in their 40s, their 50s. They are too young for a geriatric nursing home. They don't fit the criteria. But they are too brain damaged for a typical psychiatric ward. So they fall through the cracks. They fall into the void.
And for the ones who do get care, there's this huge ethical dilemma, the ethics of truth.
This keeps bioethicists and caregivers up at night. It's a real struggle.
The scenario is simple, and it happens every day. The patient asks for his wife, "Where is Mary? Mary died 5 years ago. What do you do?"
Well, option one is reality orientation, the hard truth. You sit down, you look him in the eye, and you say, "John, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but Mary died in 2021. You're in a nursing home now."
And he breaks down. He grieves.
He grieves as if it's the first time he's ever heard it. It's fresh news. It destroys him. But then he forgets. 10 minutes later, he's feeling better, and he asks, "Where is Mary?"
So if you tell him the truth, you are forcing him to mourn his wife's death 10, 20 times a day. You are literally torturing him with the truth.
Exactly. So do you lie? Do you use validation therapy? Do you say, "Oh, she's just at the store, John. She'll be back soon"?
That feels kinder, but it's a lie. You are actively gaslighting him to keep him calm.
It's the benevolent deception. Most specialists now lean toward a middle ground. You don't lie, but you don't hammer them with the brutal facts over and over. You distract and redirect. You say, "Oh, Mary, tell me about Mary. What was your favorite thing to do together?"
You let them live in the emotion of the memory.
Without crashing into the reality of the loss, it's a delicate, constant dance.
And is there any way to actually teach them anything new? Or are they just stuck forever?
There is a technique that has some success. It's called errorless learning. It's fascinating. Normal learning is trial and error. You guess, you get it wrong, you remember the mistake, you correct it next time.
But they can't do that. They remember the mistake and forget the correction.
Right. If they guess the wrong answer, that wrong answer gets stuck in their loop and becomes the new truth. So with errorless learning, you set up the environment so they cannot fail. You don't ask, "What time is lunch?" You say, "It's 12 o'clock. It's time for lunch." You guide their hand. You make it repetitive.
Then you're trying to bypass the broken memory system.
You're trying to bypass the episodic memory, the what happened memory, and tap into procedural memory.
Muscle memory.
Exactly. They might not ever know that they learned how to use the new microwave. They will have no memory of the lesson. But when they get hungry, their hand just knows which button to push. It's spooky, but it works to a degree. You build a rigid scaffold so they can exist without a functioning memory.
So let's bring this home. We've been comparing this to Alzheimer's a bit, but there is a crucial difference in the trajectory of the disease.
A huge, huge difference. Alzheimer's is a slide. It is a slow, progressive fade to black. It is relentless. The WKS, once you get past the acute stage, is largely static.
Static.
Once the acute fire burns out, the damage is done. But if the person stops drinking and they stay on high-dose thiamine supplements, they stop getting worse. They hit a floor.
So they don't necessarily die from the brain damage itself, unlike Alzheimer's.
No, they can live for decades in that state. And actually, there is a sliver of hope, which you don't really have with other dementias. About 25% of patients, a quarter, make a significant recovery over years. Another 50% improve slightly, gaining back some function.
So unlike Alzheimer's, where the door is shut and locked, here the door is cracked open just a tiny bit.
Just a crack. But you have to stay sober and you have to keep the nutrition up religiously. It's a hard road, but it's not a guaranteed death sentence in the same way.
I want to end on a thought about the self again. We started there, with the ghost in the machine.
Sure.
We talked about Jimmy G, the man who lost his narrative, the man who was stuck in 1945. But Oliver Sacks noticed something profound. When Jimmy took communion in the chapel, or when he was in the garden, or when he listened to music, he was fully present. He seemed, for a moment, whole.
Yes. The narrative self, that I am this person who did this thing yesterday, that was gone. But the emotional self, the spiritual self, the thing that feels awe or peace or rhythm, that was still there, completely intact.
It suggests that we are more than just our files. We're more than just the sum of our memories. Even when the library burns down, there is still something living in the ruins.
I'd agree with that. There is a core that seems to resist the erasure, but I'd also add a final provocation, a final warning.
Hit us.
We can wax poetic about the soul all we want, but never, ever forget that the only thing tethering that soul to this reality is a handful of enzymes. We are fragile biological machines. We are one vitamin deficiency away from the abyss.
That is a terrifying thought to take into the weekend.
It is. Take your vitamins.
And maybe eat a salad.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.